the studio of your mom's basement comes a podcast by two idiots in a revolving door of legends and has-beens from the oldest university in Texas. This is Purple, Gold, and Getting Old.
Yeah, it's the Juggernaut.
You know, I've got this UMHB game on right now, second round of the playoffs versus ETBU. And there's like even less people in the crowd than the first night. And I don't want to keep harping on this, but here's the thing. I went to college there. We all three did. That's literally the premise of our conversation tonight. I know there ain't nothing going on in Belton on a Saturday night. So where are they? Are they at Whataburger? Like, come on. Like, what are we doing, y'all? Yeah.
Well, I don't know. Let's not assume they're at a Bible study because I think you upset some people.
Well, they clearly were at a Bible study, so like I was.
Apparently, we were kidding, folks. At the end of this episode, I'll add a couple of things to that, or I might not. I don't know. I've been like deciding today what I should say and if I should just keep my mouth shut. But
well, I was adding the actual UMHB Twitter account today, so.
Nice.
As far as an official podcast standpoint, we are not keeping our mouths shut. That's me.
This wasn't the crossover I envisioned.
For everyone who doesn't know, because it got brought up when someone messaged you, I am the Twitter account. So if you get mad at the tweets, come at me. Come after me. Oh, man, Instagram. I'm 40.
Huh?
I said, come after me. I'm a man. I'm 40.
Getting there.
All right. Yeah. Let's introduce our guest, Bret Myers. Welcome.
Glad to be here. Yeah,
we're glad too.
Yeah, this is a long time coming. I'm excited for this one.
Oh God, a lot of high
expectations.
So my first question right out of the gate was, I don't know if you've ever even watched previous episodes, but if you did you ever? I'm pointing like mirror image here. Did you see the Bret Myers for President button? That's
yes, I have seen that, and it's funny because I've been telling my students for the past like 6 years, please vote me for president. I bet I can run this thing a little bit better. I told my kids I'll either be a great president or I'll get assassinated trying to be a great president. So
I'm pretty sure if anyone was great at being president, that's probably what would happen. I won't get all political or anything, but dude, I'd vote for you before pretty much anyone we've had in our lifetimes.
Appreciate that. That.
Truth. Well, anyway, so we'll jump into this here. On all the other episodes, it's kind of like we talked about when the guys got there and when we all met. And for a while, we were kind of going in order of when we all met, but we kind of had to skip around a little bit because you, of all the Tuck guys, I think you were the third guy I met, because I met Nathan my freshman year, then Andy when he checked in, and then you not long after.
Yes.
Because the way I remember meeting you, I believe, was there was a group of guys that would hang out upstairs in the room directly above mine. Mm-hmm. And it was I think like David Klein, Ryan Ledlow, Mike Martin. Yeah, Mateo. Yeah. There was like, I think some prank war broke out and there was like a bunch of hay that was dumped in somebody's room.
Yeah.
And I was an RA at the time. So that's when I remember, like, I would always like run into you when I was going to address something with that room.
Yeah. It was probably me trying to leave that room and not get in trouble with the shenanigans. So
hay sounds like just an amazing fire hazard.
Yeah.
Was that Ledlow? Or David Klein? No, I think David Klein dumped it in Ledlow's room or something.
Yeah, it was probably against Ledlow. I'm pretty sure. It seemed to be a common theme.
I just feel like Ledlow would be the one that would know where a hay bale was to jump in somebody's room.
Well, he was from a small town, you know.
Smallest in the world.
Smallest town in the world, actually.
I just derailed myself because I just started laughing.
Well, I'll ask this. So, speaking of the McLean, the kind of pranks and all that, was that the hay the craziest kind of thing that went down in McLean when you lived in there? Or
that's the craziest thing I ever heard about.
Yeah.
That's the only one I really remember. I was too busy dealing with, what's his name? Chase. What's his name? Chase.
Brown.
Yeah, Chase Brown.
Yeah.
And, like, we had this little rivalry thing going on. Like he would stare at me across the quad, like away across the quad. He would see me and we would just stare at each other as we walked by. And he'd talk about like sneaking in my room at night and looking at me breathing and all kinds of stuff. So I was more worried about him than I was about any hay bills.
I would say, as the RA that had to like hear about pranks on any given hall in our weekly meeting, I think that might be the one for that hallway, at least. That was probably the one that got out of hand because the hay got everywhere.
Yes.
Like it was just, and I think somebody had an allergy, so they started getting all like messed up. But that's funny. I forgot you mentioned that about Chase, because I remember he would always walk up to Landon Taylor and me and try to like pin us against the wall and be like, "Let's go, let's wrestle right now." Like the dude, he was a nice guy, y'all. He wasn't actually going to fight us, but he just wanted to throw down anytime, anywhere.
Yeah.
And I just remember one time Landon was laughing it off. I'm at the other end of McLean, like I'm going out the big wooden doors, and I just hear Landon in the loudest voice, "I'm gonna smash you!" Just like I was like, I don't even want to know. It just unfolded back there. But before the shenanigans of McLean your freshman year, what brought you to UMHB from the not quite as small town Elkhart?
Yeah. So I actually didn't know where I was going. I knew what I already wanted to do, but when I was a sophomore in high school, I knew I wanted to teach and coach, and that was kind of where I was wanting to go. But I still had interest in playing football. But I went to Texas State on a visit, and I didn't really like it because the campus seemed really tight and compact, and me being from a small town, I didn't really like that. So as we were driving back to my hometown, my mom was like, "Hey, here's this University of Mary Hardin Baylor. How about we go check it out?" I'm like, why not? As soon as we got on the campus, I fell in love with it just almost instantly. It was it's spaced out. It seemed like my kind of place. It was, a Christian school. I started looking. I mean, I got my phone and started looking up their football. And I'm like, oh God, their football's really good. And so I was like, man, I was excited, and I was thinking, man, I might be able to, try to go play football there. It was the only school I ever applied to, and
Nice.
I got accepted, and I was like, yeah, that's it. That's where I'm supposed to go. And so, I didn't go play football. I hurt my knee my senior year, and I decided my leg health was better than than actually trying to break it again, trying to play football. And so I decided to keep going there anyway, and just enjoy the experience.
I gotta say, y'all, Tyler's not disengaged. He's just like multi-engaged right now. How many games do you have going, by the way?
3. I've got a Supercross race on my phone. I've got the crew game on another screen on my computer, and then I've got the Austin FC game right in front of me.
It's interesting, Brett. I think like all the guys in the Tuck Bros, I could name all their stories of what brought them to UMHB except yours. And I thought of that today. I was like, I don't think I've ever actually heard what brought him there.
Funny, I was thinking the exact same thing this afternoon. I'm like, man, I kind of know everybody's stories, but like Bret, he's just like, he was always there.
Yeah.
It was like they did one of those celebrity roasts, and they were like, Jeff Ross, do you ever leave the state? Were you just here when they built these? It's interesting. So you and I are alike in that UMHB is actually the only school we both applied to, because I have a lot of people, I think they assumed I just didn't get into A&M. I'm like, no, I didn't apply. They didn't have the degree. So like you and I both just applied to one school, and I should have been more like grateful about it. When I got my acceptance letter from my mom and dad, they're like, "Hey, you got accepted to college at UMHB." I'm like, "Well, yeah, if you have a pulse and a bank account, you can." But it's interesting to me. Like I think Seth actually has an interesting, like a similar story to yours. I think he was on his way somewhere else, and he saw the exit sign of the billboard.
Yeah,
like, what is this? And being Seth, he went on an adventure and. If I remember, I think it was Rocky Vaslavic ended up like he met him somehow and they ended up like recruiting him to come play. But yeah, it was like super random. Just saw it on the way from somewhere else. I bet there's a lot of people that had that happen. It's kind of cool.
That's kind of almost what happened to me in a lot of ways. I was looking at a total different school, but there had been someone who'd been telling me about UMHB. I'm like, nah. And we had to pass it as we came up the highway. And Mama was like, "You want to stop?" I'm like, "No." And then I really didn't like the school I went to. I'm like, okay, we'll go check out that other school. And then I was like, oh, this is it. Yeah.
All right.
And then only school I applied to, actually. So all
3 of us. So somebody needs to call Kevin Feige and say, hey, we've got the idea for the next few what if episodes. One person at any given time didn't stop.
But it's crazy because I feel like you're the same way. You knew the schools around you, the colleges around you, you knew the big ones. But anything past 2 hours or 3 hours, you had if it was a small school, you had no idea.
I don't know where I'm from. Where I'm from, you almost had to drive 2 hours to get to the next college.
Well, that's true.
Well, I mean, there were a million junior colleges. Like we had Frank Phillips and all these other ones in the Panhandle. And I knew a lot of people go like play baseball or volleyball their freshman year and then transfer out. But yeah, it was a 4.5 minute drive to West Texas A&M or a 2 hour drive to Tech, and then you're looking at Hardin Simmons may have been like the closest college after that, and that was almost 5 hours away.
Let's not speak of them.
No.
It seems like a lot of the people who grew up Baptist knew of all the little different Baptist schools like ETBU, HPU, HSU, us, because youth group and a bunch of people going. I not growing up Baptist, I'd never even heard of Mary Hardin Baylor at all. But I was like, oh, sweet, they got a cool football team. Let's go.
I would have eventually heard of them just because they were one of 3 schools that offered the major minor combo I wanted.
Yeah.
But
well, and your mom went there though, right?
That's the thing though. Like if I'd have heard of them if she hadn't, but yeah, my grandma and my mom went, which at first almost was like a deterrent. I'm like, I don't want to be like grandma's boy, you know. I want to go where my dad went, you know. But I mean, that all played out quite well. But so you get to UMHB, the wild times of McLean happen.
Yeah.
I don't know why my green screen keeps cutting weight from my face and then adding it when I lean back. It's weird. I look weird enough with that. I don't need that. But yeah, so you and I, we didn't hang out a whole lot your first semester.
No.
I think you and I, like, we knew each other. I'd run into you all the time, but I think as far as like hanging out, there was a group of like Randy and Daniel and Aaron and all them that we ran with quite a bit. Obviously we didn't partake in all the festivities they did, but I think that's kind of how I got to know you better. It was that second semester.
Yeah. And you were the mascot too, you know.
Yeah.
I ran into you there. That's how I kind of knew you to begin with, because I saw you mask. I was trying to figure out who you were, and then finally somebody told me. I was like, "Oh, okay, I know who that is." Then so,
yeah, I'm glad we weren't one of those schools. Like some schools do a secret thing where like no one knows who the mascot is, and I'm like, that's lame, because it'd be like Batman. You know, they think Bruce Wayne disappears when stuff goes on. They think you just don't like sports. You know, it's like, no, I was actually on the field the whole time. So one thing that we always cover is like favorite traditions and things you were involved with. What were some of yours? Because I know you and I did Easter pageant together, and there were several different things you were part of, and like we were always in stunt night at the same times. Which by the way, I've showed several people over the years, but somebody was talking about threw it on the ground, and I'm like, oh, get a load of this. And I showed them, and they're like, they didn't know what UMHB was or anything. They're like, what am I watching? So what were like your favorite traditions and things you were part of?
Stunt night was definitely number one. I enjoyed it. Other than when we did the Dr. Seuss thing my sophomore year, that was awful.
Wait, did your mom make just your costume or like all of them?
No, she just made mine.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, stunt night was probably my favorite thing. I super enjoyed stunt night. I like the process of it, just trying to figure stuff out. But I'm not much even though I'm a teacher, I don't like being in front of people very well. So it kind of got me out of my comfort zone. And but yeah, I love stunt night. And I like watching the other people, and me being competitive as I am, I wanted to beat everybody too. Yeah. So
which y'all finally did.
Yeah. Well, you know, our senior year, you know, I got mad because I thought we should have won, and then we didn't win. And I think I stole one of those little night trophies from somebody else because I was mad that we didn't win. So
I think, you know, we make a funny preview for every episode, and I think we just had our moment because our podcast isn't under enough scrutiny yet. So what's one that you wish you had been a part of?
Well, I was part of Easter pageant one time, but I wish I was a part of it more than what it was. You know, when I did Easter pageant, it was such a surreal thing. Like the people that show up and everything that goes along with it. And can I throw in a story here?
Yeah.
Okay. So
I talk too much. It's your turn.
The Easter pageant I was a part of, I was one of the guards, the Roman guards, which they always had the big burly football guys and all that kind of stuff. But anyways, we took Jesus and we were supposed to beat him, you know, like how we're supposed to. And it was, I think Mark Miller was Jesus. And we had to choreograph the hitting and all that kind of stuff. And we never actually did it in the pageant, obviously, because he wouldn't hurt anybody.
Really?
No, I mean, we didn't do it in practice.
Mm.
But right before, Mark was like, "Hey, don't kill me, but hit me." And we're like,
Yeah.
"All right, like whatever." Well, I was the first person to hit him. We would throw him down. He'd get on his knees, and then I would back slap him. And never really, did it. Well, you got that sound that's dubbing over everything, and I went to put my hand up to slap him, and as soon as I was about to come down, the sound cut off, and all you hear is whack, like as hard as I could. And I was like, "Oh God!" But what made it worse is there was a little girl in the stands. I could hear her. She goes, "He hit Jesus." And it just broke my heart. I was like, "Oh, I'm going to hell for this." I hit Jesus across the face, and I was never. That was the first performance, and I was like, "Please don't do that the next two, because I don't think I'm going to survive. It's too much." I think I broke a sword in Easter pageant trying to run away from the tomb. But yeah, I wish I was part of it more. I really enjoyed it. I always enjoyed the stories I heard before about, you know, the guards getting spit on by somebody on the cross.
Oops.
And then them punching them in the stomach and all kinds of stuff. So I mean,
I would tell Rusty Roper if he was watching this, I didn't mean to spit on him. The wind caught it, but he got me back because he dealt a blow to one of my ribs. I was like, oh.
So and I never was a part of stunt night, or not stunt night, Crusader nights, but I don't know if I could ever do that. Even I would want to do that because it was fun. I really enjoyed watching it, but that's just, I'm not much of a singing, dancing kind of guy. So that would have been kind of out of my realm of expertise.
I've always thought it'd be funny if somebody, and as I say this, I could picture you doing this. One person who just doesn't want to sing and dance gets out there and just stand there like bored while everyone else is doing the choreography.
I'd probably enjoy that, actually.
I'm going to vote for that.
Yeah, that'd be great. No,
hey, I knew that would be the winner. I would have done that.
I think your skit video could have been hilarious, though, just to harness your like comedic power. I don't know what the would have been about, but I do know it would have been good, though.
Look, if it was all videos and that had to be on stage, I'd have been all over it. That I can do videos all day, but being on stage in front of people is it's crazy because I've taught for 10 years and I've never had this fear of talking in front of kids, but getting in front of people of my own age, I'm in a straight panic half the time. So
yeah, I can only imagine if one of the Tuck guys had been tonight and we'd all been a part of the video, because Nathan was in it our senior year, but they did it differently that year. Like the videos were every single one was like a speed dating round with Mrs. O'Rear, which that in and of itself was kind of strange. But Nathan brought me along, and somebody played guitar, and I had to like sing a spoof of Flight of the Conchords to Mrs. O'Rear, and I was like, "Am I really about to do this? Like, this is kind of strange." But
yeah.
So, and I remember your Easter pageant year. I think I touched on this when we had the Easter pageant episode with Rebecca, but I was so burned out. I didn't really want to do it, but I also thought it'd be stupid to go 3 years and just not do the fourth one. So I didn't come to any rehearsals, and I showed up the day of, and somebody, it may have been you, I don't remember. I don't remember. I told somebody, I said, "Hey, just save me a costume. I'll be there. I've done this 3 years. I know how to be a crowd member." And they're like, "We got you." So like, it didn't take away from the meaning of Easter pageant. The meaning always hit me all 4 years, but the experience of it, I thought was going to be lame. I just remember hanging out with you and Aaron the whole time, Aaron Klein, and we had a good time. Like, it wasn't really rowdy or anything, but it was just like, dude, I needed to decompress, not be in class, and just hang out with these guys. And it was a lot of fun being with y'all. But
what was your favorite sports memory that you can think of?
See, this is where all my sports run together, and I can't remember half the stuff because
we'll get to your coaching soon enough.
Yeah, I know. The one that's sticking out just off the top of my head right now is that Whitewater game where they kicked the football and went straight up in the air.
Oh,
like
yeah.
50 yards back. Everybody's mad because they're like, no, that went 10 yards, and we ended up losing that game. But if that went the other way, we would have won the game, and crap, we could have won a national championship that year.
Yeah.
Didn't Whitewater win it, or at least get there?
They won it that year. Yeah. That's what started their run, I want to say, was that, the year before, I guess, started their run.
Yeah.
It was at the very beginning of it.
But I really just remember maybe not the actual games themselves. I remember some stuff, like Quincy Carter, not Quincy Carter. Is it Quincy Carter?
Daniels.
Quincy Daniels. Oh my God, Cowboys and
Quincy Daniels was better than Quincy Carter.
he was. I would remember like, there'd be 5 seconds left in the half and we just hand the ball off. We're like, yeah, whatever. And there he goes. Like, what the heck? Or, we would sit here like we used to run that old option left, option right, dive up the middle. Here we go. Like we knew what the play was going to be. But I would just remember just hanging out with the guys up there and, face painting and the getting on the trucks and the cars and I don't remember what that's even called anymore, but campus run, just all that. What that stuff meant more to me than any of the games and just hanging out and just having that college experience. That was so exciting for me.
That's exactly what the current students need to hear. It was the outside the game that mattered most.
That exactly. Like I wasn't a huge sports fan growing up because I raced motocross. I did wakeboarding, like sports without teams and fans and stuff.
It's hard to picture that now.
It is. But here's I was not a sports fan at all coming into college. But what sold me was on my campus tour. It was I can't remember who was a former couch crew captain was just talking about the couch crew and all the fun they had. And it was like the community that went around the sport that I fell in love with. And I was like, man, I want to be a part of that.
Jeremy Williams, wasn't it?
It was Jeremy Williams. Yeah. And that's the true fun of it is like the road tripping with friends, the goofy stuff that you come up with the chant in the crowd, just those are the things, man, that make that's where I met most of my friends. That's how I met y'all guys,
Yeah.
It's interesting. That same game. And you reminded me of a different game. And I was going to ask if you remembered a certain moment and now I forgot. So I'm sure after we log off, I'll remember it. Yeah. But one thing I was going to do, and we'll get to your career here in a moment, I was going to pull an Andy and just have your stats. I was going to be like, okay, at this school and this school, but I was like,
oh, please don't do that. I don't want to embarrass myself.
It's and for me, the observation I've had is for you, it depends on which school you're at, because you're a good coach and y'all have had some good games this year, but it's you've also coached at some dumb places that didn't really utilize your talents. So, before we jump into that, so the UMHB thing, so the Friar Tuck group started at the very end of my junior year, your sophomore year. Mm-hmm. Every guy's had the same answer to this, but I'm curious to see if you'll break the streak here. Did you have any idea that was going to turn into the group we had?
Yes and no. And the reason why I say yes is because the friend group that I was a part of, the two guys that I was the closest to, we didn't necessarily have a falling out personally. I just stopped hanging out with them, and I was looking for a group to be a part of, and somehow I worked my way over to the St. Jerome's Cathedral somehow, but I just knew these are the guys I want to hang out with. And
was that your freshman year?
No, that would have been the end of my sophomore year.
Okay.
And so that's why I say yes, because I knew these are the guys I want to hang out with, but at the same time, I didn't know it was going to turn into what it did, where we have 15 to 20 people hanging out and, girlfriends and all that kind of stuff. And, becoming, bros for life, basically, that never would have came across my mind. But, the two guys that I was hanging out with, they were great guys. I loved being around them. That a lot of funny stories coming from them. But yeah, I think, at the moment, I felt like this was going to be a good thing. This is where I was supposed to be. And I'm a big proponent of following what my heart does. And so when I feel something's good or something's right, I pursue it pretty immediately. And I felt like, man, this is comfortable. This is home. This is what I want to do. These are the guys I want to be around. They're similar to me. And so, so yes and no. And that,
I just froze.
or at least have.
Before
Sorry,
we get
I totally froze.
Stuff,
I hope it didn't cut y'all out.
You're good. Is there stuff that you learned and you experienced while at UMHB that you still use today, like in your coaching and teaching?
Yeah, actually there is. there was just one class, and believe it or not, I wouldn't have thought this class would have meant anything, but it really ended up shaping my whole coaching outlook. And I can't remember the class name, but it was in the exercise and sports science, and we had to read books from different coaches, and it was books by Tony Dungy that I read. I read a book by Bo Schembechler, the Michigan football coach. The Bo Schembechler and the Tony Dungy hit me the hardest. Uh, you know, they both talked about how family was more important than watching that extra hour of game film, or, when you're done, you're done. Like, don't sit up there and try to overwork yourself. You can only do so much. And I've really kind of taken that and like, that's important. And so that kind of my philosophy really tied in with that class. And at the time I was just reading a book for the grade. And then when I actually started reading, I was like, man, this is good stuff. And I really enjoy this. And, but of course, all the history classes, I teach history. Some of that stuff has come and helped me just because I had to study and, read some stuff and, just being a lifelong learner of history. But that one class really sticks out for me. And then just dealing with people. I mean, I deal with people all the time, every day, kids, and so I've had to deal with idiots and nice people and great kids. And, you just learn that kind of stuff as you go through college, as you mature and everything.
Wait, we were supposed to mature?
Yeah.
I was just thinking like that. He got his training with the Friar Tuck group because people would say, "Nice kids, good kids, idiots."
Yeah, well, I was always the reasonable one of the group.
True. So. When you said a second ago, you always kind of followed your heart, dude. That like I will second that. Like you were always the one who, if we got rowdy, so you were always kind of the level-headed one at the end of the day. That was like either you would either say, "All right, scale back," or you'd say, "Have fun, I'm out." Like you would do one of the two.
Yeah.
And
that's where the whole Juggernaut thing, came from. I kind of just did my own thing, and it wasn't supposed to be a jerk to you guys, but I would just get tired of being around people sometimes. I just want to go and be by myself, and and so I kind of just did my own thing. And like I remember a time y'all were doing this scavenger hunt, and I just stayed. Y'all forgot me. Y'all didn't know I was
remember that.
On, and I was pissed because y'all forgot me. So I just went back to my apartment. Y'all are calling me, texting me, "Where are you at?" I'm like, "No, I'm not dealing with y'all. I'm done with y'all tonight. I'm going back to my apartment." I
felt so bad. So for the audience to know, we did this thing called Dare Night, where Kane Taylor and I would come up with a list of punishable, cancelable, and just everythingable scavenger item list, which nowadays they just call TikTok challenges, but we would just compile like 100 of them. I think the police only got involved once, maybe twice. But all that to say, I remember that night vividly because we broke up into two groups, and at the end of the night, we all get back together, and I think it was Carly walked up to me. She goes, "Where's Bret?" And I was like, "Well, he was on your team. You tell me." And she's like, "No, he was on your team." And she and I had this back and forth of like, "Uh-oh." Did we both straight up leave him? And so we all gather around and we're like, "Yeah, we left Bret." So we go back inside and you weren't there, but I guess when you left, I don't know if the door was unlocked or what. We're all standing there gathered around, and three of the girls, they didn't like scream, but they like borderline screamed like, "Garrett." And I was like, "What?" They pointed to my couch, and Preach is passed out on my couch.
What? I never heard of that.
Yeah, you had already left. So Preach had just moseyed over to see what we were up to, got tired of waiting, and fell asleep on the couch. And like 3 or 4 of these girls never heard of him, never knew him, never met him because they were like in a completely different age group. And they're like, "Who is this? Why is he on your couch?" I'm like, it's Preach. Like, it was one of the most random moments of college, I think. But then I after Preach left, I walked over, I like messaged Bret. I'm like, "Yo, where you at?" Because I was also afraid you might have gotten left like off campus because we didn't conceal it to campus. So I was like, "Do we need to go pick him up?"
But no, I was just always that way. And I'm still that way, where I still want to get by myself sometimes, and I've just always been that way. And I remember one time, and being on the competitive side, I remember Tyler finally beat me in NCAA 14. Finally beat me. I was running through all of y'all, and he finally beat me. And I swear I didn't talk to him for like a week. I went back to my room. As soon as he beat me, I put the controller down, I shook his hand, and I walked out. And I was in my room mad. And then I swear I practiced forever. And I came back and I was like, we're going to play again. And I think I beat you. I beat the brakes off of you. I couldn't remember, but
it's funny you bring that up, because that's one of the things I was wanting to bring up soon, was just like, I vividly remember us having like these big Madden or NCAA football or even like NHL like tournaments, Xbox or whatever, in Garrett's apartment, oftentimes with like none of the people who actually live there. And it wasn't just like, oh, we're playing games together. Like, we would get so competitive with it. And I would get so mad that you consistently beat me that I would do the same thing. I would go and train. I would whatever, I'd go like play games, try to get other people practicing against me in McLean and whatnot. And so, yeah, when I won, dude, I felt like I truly accomplished something.
And I think I even picked somebody that was maybe not as good because I'd been beating you so bad. And I was like, I'm going to pick somebody less. And then I think you picked Tennessee and you just beat me. And I'm like, what the heck? This is so stupid. I'm done with this game.
Well, if I picked Tennessee, I didn't pick a good team either then.
As you were describing it, I was like, I think I have the video of that moment. And I don't have it on this computer. I think it's on my external hard drive.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, you were jumping around. Oh, we number one, and you were like jumping around.
Yes,
it exists somewhere. I'll see if I can find it. But what's funny is the folder I did open of old videos. Bret was in the thumbnail of two of the videos. One of them was the graduation party promotion video we made, where we opened up with Juggernaut Productions presents the graduation, and then the other one I've got here was it's Bret and Patty dancing on the couch at one of the graduation parties.
Oh my God, I must have been not there. I don't know. Remember any of that stuff.
Well, you weren't like standing on the couch dancing, but y'all were just like both doing this in the video, and it was just funny. I don't even know why we filmed it. Yeah, so I do remember that competitive. I remember when Andy finally beat you too. It's like everyone had their monumental win over Bret, and it was almost like keep the controller, because this doesn't happen every day.
Well,
sorry. It was like Tennessee this year where they tore down the goalpost for beating Alabama. That was the vibe.
But
burial in the river.
It's crazy. To kind of tie this to joining the group to video games. The reason why me and those other guys stopped hanging out was because of video games.
I think I remember that.
And it was this guy that was their roommate. And we were playing this whole NCAA season. I was like Iowa. I don't know why the crap I picked Iowa. But he had Texas, and Texas was really good. Well, we played this full season with a bunch of different guys, and me and him meet in the championship. And he starts doing all these onside kicks, going for 4, or going on 4th down, going for 2. And I just ran the ball the whole time. I just did this option stuff the whole time. And I knew if I was going to beat him, I had to play perfect. Well, I fumbled the ball or something like that. Well, he ran it back and scored a touchdown, and I spiked his control. It was his gaming system. I spiked his controller into the ground because I was mad. Pieces fly everywhere. And long story short, we ended up getting into it over that, and I just stopped hanging out with him. So it's kind of funny. Like, video games tore me away from that group and then brought me to this group so I can get beat by you guys.
What's funny is Tyler's tweet from the podcast about needing to do better. It just popped up on my phone for some reason, like an alert. I was like, I already knew about this. Sorry, I'm coughing. Y'all go for it.
So what was your first coaching job? I want this is where I want to start. Wait, do you have any other UMHB stuff? Because I'm ready to get into coaching.
Well, I did have one story that I've been thinking about all day.
Okay.
That had to do, and it's had to do with before I started hanging out with you guys, because there's a lot of other stuff that we did that if we sat in and did all this, we'd be here for 5 hours. But I don't know if I think I probably told y'all this story, but I thought it'd be great for content. So me and these other guys, one guy's named Tyler, Orlando, Daniel Evans. Remember Daniel? These were the 3 guys that I hung out with all the time. Well, we would consistently go to late McDonald runs, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock at night. Well, we decided to go one night, and old Tyler had one of these old 1990s like Cadillac, like Buick beat up looking car. And we go to McDonald's and we're driving back. Well, when we get to HEB, there's a cop car sitting right there. And we're like, whatever, we're not doing anything wrong.
This
Well,
is
the
the old,
cop car,
old HEB, right? Because it was
Yeah,
still,
yeah. Oh, here comes baby.
Oh, how old is baby now?
Baby's
2 year, 1 year,
2.5.
2.5. Dang, dude.
Yeah. You want to say hi?
Hello.
Hey, hi.
This is
So
our like
much.
third or fourth child appearance we've had on the podcast.
See Ashton's kids, Bret's. Mine's in the next room. I don't know. Dude, she is so much older than the last picture I saw.
Yeah. Yeah, she's bound full of energy. So
Hi, Daddy.
yeah, hey. That's not Daddy. That's Garrett. Daddy. So we go past. Yeah, you see him. Okay, I'm about to lock you out. So we're driving, and the cop car pulls behind us. Whatever. We make a turn down Main Street, and as soon as we turn into UMHB, he follows us into campus. And it's a Belton cop. It's not like campus police or anything. We get to that first stop sign, and we stop, complete stop. We sat there for like 4 seconds, and he makes a left. And as soon as we make a left, boom, lights turn on. We're like, what the heck? So they pull us over, and yeah, so we turn left. Cop turns his lights on, pulls us over. We're like, what the heck? And I was mad. And we were mad because we were eating our McDonald's. Like, we wanted to eat. Like, we're hungry, whatever. And so he comes over there, and Tyler's driving. Orlando's in the front seat, driver passenger seat, and me and Daniel are in the back. Well, he gets Tyler and takes him out and takes him to the back of the car. And we're like, okay, this is weird. And so we're just eating. And by the way, we're all freshmen. So I'm like halfway freaking out here. Then the cop comes back and says, all of you out of the car. And we're like, what the heck? Like, what's going on? And I told Daniel, I said, if he, and by the way, that was when Monopoly McDonald's was going on.
Yeah.
And I said, if he takes any of my Monopoly or my prize, I'm gonna kill it. I'm not gonna say that. I'm gonna do some bad things to this cop.
You'll need to get out of jail for
Yeah. Yeah. And so we go back there, and Tyler's got his hands behind his back, and I'm like, oh God, we're getting arrested. This is great. Never done a bad thing in my life. I'm getting arrested like my first semester at college. And then as soon as I get there, his arms start swinging. I'm like, oh, you jerk. You did that on purpose. He goes, huh, yeah, whatever. I'm like, oh, stupid. Oh. All of a sudden, 2 campus police cars show up, and they start searching the car, all this kind of stuff. And we're talking like, what's going on? And all this. And I'm sitting there playing with like the flashing lights in front of the car, like no big deal. And they're searching for stuff. Well, the cop starts bringing us back one by one to talk to us. And he brings back Tyler, whatever. He brings me back, and he made me so mad because he was talking about height, 5'9", weight, husky. And I'm like, man, why are you making fun of me like that? Like, can you just say like big guy or something? Like, it's whatever. Well, then he gets to Orlando, and Orlando's the last guy. Orlando comes, or actually, sorry, while we're standing there, the guy comes back and says, do y'all have any guns, knives, rocket launchers, weapons of mass destruction, midgets with rocket launchers? And we're like, no, like, why would we have any of that? By the way, I have a cop friend, the guy who works at our school. He used to say the same stuff, like rocket launchers, nuclear weapons, just to screw with people. But anyways, Orlando just says no, like as rudely as possible. And I was like, Orlando, come on, dude, like chill out. And he's like, you got something to say? Like, are you hiding something? He's like, no. I'm like, oh, Orlando, you're gonna get us all arrested because you're being rude to this cop. But anyways, I was like, we're gonna get arrested because he's being rude. But when Orlando comes back and they let us go, And they're like, well, why do they pull us over? We're sitting there trying to figure out why do they pull us over? There's no reason. He's like, well, I know. I'm like, how do you know? He's like, well, you just told me. I was like, what the heck? And he said that Daniel, when we were driving by him at HB, Daniel had reached down to pick up his phone that had fallen down in the floorboard, and the cop thought we were hiding weed. And because of the car that we were in, and he was doing that, and we
were
were
y'all
bunch
in
of
Paula? Was this Paula the Impala?
No, it wasn't my
okay.
car. It was Tyler's car. No,
Okay.
Paula would never do such a thing. But yeah, that was crazy. Like within the first 4 months of me being in college, I'm like, I'm getting arrested, and of course cars are passing us, coming back on campus, and I'm like, they're gonna think we're some kind of drug dealers or whatever. Anyways, a little story about that.
I just love how, of all the things people thought we were into, like the Friar Tuck guys, I love how probably every guy in that group had a run-in with the police, whether it was Belton or campus cops, except Seth, who went on to become a cop, unlike the rest of us. Yeah.
Doesn't make any sense.
And he keeps moving up the ladder in law enforcement, but I still will, I'm always one of his job references, and to this day, I'm still not used to it when I get a phone call and there's a voicemail. It's like, this is so-and-so from the sheriff's department in whatever county. I need to call you regarding Seth Prohaska. If you would call me back. I'm like, whoa, what happened? Like, what did I do? But I'm pretty much used to it. But I just remember, because Seth warned me on the most recent one. But the first time I ever got a call, I had no warning. So I'm working at HBU. I got a call. It's like, this is somebody from the Hayes County Sheriff's Department. Do you know a Seth Protraska? I'm like, Prohaska? And they were like, sure. I'm like, maybe. Why? What does this entail? Like, job reference. I'm like, oh, okay, cool.
Well, Bret, all things considered, that I think that run-in with the Belton PD went pretty good.
Yeah,
I had a run-in one time with the Belton PD that I've never told on this podcast before. One summer I was home in San Antonio, and I got a speeding ticket trying to get to work late, and it was right before I was supposed to pay for school, and I was so tight. I had to make a choice: pay for school, pay the ticket. So I paid for school, and I didn't pay the ticket, and I didn't try to work anything out. I was just I'll get to it when I get to it. Forgot about it.
Which you did years later.
Yeah, a year later. It was a whole year later. I didn't realize this, but if you knew that, then they'll just automatically suspend your license. So I'm driving around with a suspended license without knowing it. And so I'm driving home from an exam one time, and I think my inspection was out. And so a cop pulled me over for bad inspection, and he goes back and he starts, takes my license back and does the whole thing, like they typically do. But he's back there a long time. I'm like, man, what's going on? And then another car shows up and they start chatting. I'm like, what is going on? And so they pull me out, put me in handcuffs. I'm like, what is happening? I'm literally on my way home from taking a New Testament exam. And I'm like, oh, and this is relevant because I'm in a UMHB polo. Okay. So that does not look like your typical material. So I'm freaking out, but I'm trying to calm myself. I'm like, okay, we're just going to get through this process, whatever, we'll be okay. So I'm being super nice to the cops and super chatty with them just to kind of show them, hey, I'm just a regular dude, and this is a really crazy bad situation for me, but you can try just help me understand what this process is going to be like. Well, they got real friendly, and he's like, when's the last time you did drugs? I'm like, I've never done drugs, sir. He goes, never? He's like, you're lying. I'm like, no, I've never done drugs. That's impressive. You should keep it that way. I'm like, yes, sir.
Yeah, because UMHB, that's so impressive.
Well, I know, yeah. And so they put me in. It's just kind of a general area, so I'm not in a cell or anything. And I'm just trying to stick to myself. And there was only one open seat among this whole big group, and there was some scary looking people. And so I get down there, and I'm just listening to them, and I realize, oh, these are drug dealers. And I started learning words I never heard. He's like, yeah, man, they caught me for slinging over in Killeen. And I'm trying to slinging. What are you slinging? Oh, I'm context clues, talking about drugs. And so the whole inside of the Bell County police or jail or whatever it is all this light shade of pink. And I'd read one time, or maybe it was on a 99% Invisible podcast or something. They do that. to keep you keep you calm, is apparently what it does psychologically. And this one big old dude is going like, I don't understand why it's pink. And I love telling people facts. It's one of my worst traits about me. It blurts out and I'll like say, it's psychologically, it keeps you calm. And this guy like turns to me and goes, MFer, you smart. No, I don't want attention. I don't want anybody to know who I am.
Dude, we have got to get Rebecca and Jill on an episode to tell the full thing.
Yeah. And
it's
so
funny.
I get my phone call and I'm gonna tell my wife might be mad. I'll tell it. I called my wife, girlfriend at the time, like 8 times. She never answered. She will not answer. And so I call Rebecca or Jill, one of the two of them. They're together, and they're the ones who end up coming to bail me out. So thank you, Rebecca and Jill. I don't think I ever get you the dinner I said I'd owe you, but next time we're together, it's on me.
You didn't, because Rebecca always adds that to the story when she tells it.
And so I was chatting with the cops and like trying to get out of there, and everyone else was telling me like, dude, you're not getting out of here tonight. It's not going to happen. I got arrested about 4:00, and but I'm being super nice to them, and everyone else just being super rude. And I'm like, man, it's going to pay off for me. And they ended up getting me out before other people who came in after me. And people were so mad at me. I'm like, dude, if you would just like be polite and be nice, like they'll like you make their job easy, they're gonna make your life easier.
Can you imagine if something happened? Oh, actually, we can't get you out yet. We're gonna have to put you back in.
I would have panicked because right at the end, I got out right about midnight. Right at the end, they had the shift change, and the whole time we just been in this general area. And like they fed dinner, and I would not eat it. It was disgusting. And they're like, "You're gonna want to eat it. You'll be hungry." I'm like, "Nope, not doing it. I'm getting out tonight," just because I could not psychologically like process I'm spending the night. But during the shift change, they put all these people in like this little cell, and that's when I started to have a panic attack. Sure enough,
I just remember.
I get out, and I'm getting processed out, and sitting on this bench with this other guy, and I won't say the name of this person he knew, but he starts looking at me and seeing the UMHB shirt, and he's like, you go to UMHB? I'm like, yeah. And he could tell that's kind of odd. And he goes, oh, what's your major? And I go, Christian studies. And he could tell like something broke in his brain. He's like, and I thought about explaining it, like why it was like, you know what? I'm going to let him sit with it. He's going to ask.
Hey, the Apostle Paul did some time in jail. I'm just trying to follow his
head moving. And he goes, why are you in here? And I had to tell him. And so then it was so funny. He was from a nearby town, and he said he grew up there. And I'm like, oh, do you know fill in the blank, a friend of ours that has been on the podcast? And he's like, yeah, I started talking about it. I'm like, man, I can't wait to make this person so mad that I'm like, hey, I met a friend of yours in jail.
Oh my gosh.
I got out thanks to Rebecca and Jill. It was great. And, I got an experience for, really not truly doing anything really wrong. But man, it was terrifying. So
I just love that we had a Friar Tuck Bro reunion because that was the year that the group basically split. Like if we were a band, that would have been when the records say we broke up. But the guys would still get together. And I remember we had the bachelor party because Nathan was having a kid before the rest of us. And we all went up to Dallas, and just among us, I had posted this picture where I had photoshopped all of us. And I tried to find like the meanest mug we all had. And I put like jail stuff over it and make it look like mug shots. The funny thing was Tyler's, I actually used a mug shot. It was like,
I was so mad. Yes. Like Rebecca or somebody had found it online. I'm like, oh, I hate that that's online.
Hannah found it in like 5 minutes, like because they had called us, and we weren't doing it to make fun of you. We were trying to find where you were because we were on the phone trying to help them help you.
Yeah.
And so Hannah, she reads all those mystery novels, and she's just a super sleuth. I mean, she had it like that, and I was like, before you close that window, can we take a screenshot? Because at some point this is going to be used. And it was a week later.
Shout out Hannah. I didn't realize Hannah was instrumental in getting me out of there. Thanks, Hannah.
Yep. Well, I would say that Hannah and Bret are kind of like the quiet backbones that kept a lot of it together at times. And so before we jump into coaching, the only other thing that we've asked on the other Tuck episodes is, what is like your favorite trait or thing you admire about the other guys?
Well, for me, being the type of guy that I am, and what I always enjoyed was the spontaneous aspect of our group, and we were always able to have fun no matter what we were doing, where we were at, and that was everybody. And I think I enjoyed that aspect of everybody more than anything, because I was not that type of guy. I like to keep to myself, and so uh, just uh, the camaraderie and the just hanging out, and we could be sitting in a room and not doing a thing, and we were going to have the best night of our life, at that time. And then if we ever actually went and did something, that became the greatest nights of the time. And that's what I think I admired as everybody, all the guys in the group, that just that aspect of we're going to enjoy ourselves, and but we're going to do it as brothers, basically, and hang out and just be just, and everybody individually kept their personality, and some guys would be a little bit crazier, some guys are a little bit quieter, and you know and that's great too, that we were able to keep our individual identities within the group, and everybody had kind of like their role to play.
Yep.
uh, and that was a good thing too. So I think that would probably what I admire the most out of everybody.
Awesome.
Well, let's get into your
Rogers
coaching
High School.
career.
Well, I jumped to student teaching. I'm like blending into your coaching.
Okay,
Did you coach at Rogers or just teach?
I just taught. I tried to get into athletics, and I was in it, but all they did was lift weights like every single day. And I was like, why? And it was last period. I said, I could be going home.
Yeah.
So
Good
I was
call.
like, yeah, if I'm going to, and they weren't even like lifting different, like they were doing the same lifts every day.
Wow.
Oh, watch out.
I
They were doing
just
the same
remember
lifts every day. So like,
I just remember when I worked at Blinn, there was this girl came in her freshman year, and I think it was the year after you taught there. And I just remember this girl was like, "Hey, we want to start a student organization." I'm like, "Great, here's the forms, all of this. You just need a staff faculty sponsor." And this girl was like, "We're gonna start the girls' night out club with like mimosas and stuff." I'm like, "You're a freshman," and she's like, "Yeah, I know. We're gonna put you down as our sponsor because we couldn't find one." I'm like, "I'm not sponsoring the girls' night out club where underage girls go out drinking." And she comes back and she had put on the form from Rogers, Texas, and I was like, "Oh, buddy, mine was just teaching there." And I just like didn't think of it. I just said it out loud. And she goes, "Oh my gosh, who?" I was like, I just gotta go, Coach Myers. And she was like, "Oh my gosh, I was in his class." And she like walks out. I was like, whoops. So you didn't coach there, but this is where on a previous episode, I think Kane's episode, I mentioned that I had the honor of going to honor/adventure of going to college with Seth Prohaska twice in two different schools. And not only was I in college with Seth at Texas A&M, but you were also present for that. You were not in school at A&M, but you were there, and we saw you quite a bit that year because I forgot about that. So the other day I saw a picture of Hannah's birthday. It was her, two of her cousins, you, me, and Seth. And I was like, because you and Seth had an interesting dynamic because y'all's personalities were so different. And like I remember y'all would talk so much crap to each other, but at the end of the day, if one of you had a flat tire, the other one would have been there to fix it in like 2 seconds.
Yeah.
So I always loved watching that about y'all, but it was cool. I was like, oh, that's right. The three of us hung out after that. But you lived in College Station, Bryan-ish. You were like right there between the two. I don't remember, but
yeah.
Which by the way, be glad you don't now because that same road is so hard to get to now. I drove past it not long ago, but you coached at Hearn, Texas. And what did I'm trying to remember what you coached.
So I did football, mainly junior high, but I did go with the varsity, the high school, obviously. I did junior high basketball, and then I did baseball. And I was the assistant for all of those. So yeah, that's pretty much what I did.
You were just there for one very long year, right? Okay.
It was the out of the 11 years that I've taught, that year was probably the longest. And just because, first year teacher, you're having to learn all these different things, but just the stuff that you had to deal with on a day-to-day basis was pretty rough.
Well, that school was always either in the news or it was just on the hearsay. That was like they didn't know if the school was even going to financially make it. They didn't know all sorts of stuff. And I remember when you texted me and told me that they it's like they weren't renewing a contract or whatever. And at first I'm like, why wouldn't they do that? Then I saw, was it a third or 2/3 of the school didn't get their contract renewed or something? It was like a mass unrenewal. So like it wasn't like they fired you. It was just like, man, they're cleaning house and might not make it.
Well, the crazy thing is a couple years after I left, TEA actually stepped in and actually made everybody reapply for their job.
Wow.
And because their scores were so bad. And so that school was just not that good of a school. I mean, I was told by the principal within the first couple of weeks that if you get in a corner and you feel threatened, you can fight your way out. Like, that's how rough the school. I almost got in a fight with a student, actually.
I think I remember that. I remember Seth and I were like, "Do we need to come get you?"
Yeah. Because there was this guy, and he was a junior, and he was in front of the class, acting like he was teaching, like he was me. And I was like, I won't say his name. I was like, "Hey, go sit down." He goes, "Man, I'm a better teacher than you." And I was like, okay, whatever. Then he said, "I'm a better coach than you." And I was like, okay, now that's it.
That's like you play ball like a girl.
Yeah. So I had some, I was actually in the corner of my classroom, and I said, "You know what? You want to know why you can't teach my class?" I said, "Because you can't pass my test." And that just made all of his buddies mad. They're all like, "Oh." And so he turns around.
Bret, I'm sorry.
I thought you were reacting to the story because
no. UMHB just hit a buzzer beater 3 to win the game.
Holy crap!
Dang!
Oh my god, that was amazing.
I bet all 10 students loved that.
Yeah, but not many people were there to see it, but they were going nuts. That's awesome.
That's amazing.
Way to make my story seem very entertaining.
Like, yeah, I know. Like I reacted the same way to the story, and I was like, "Tell him Tyler's reacting to that."
He did it at the exact same time, so it makes the story look great. Thank you.
The timing of that's magical.
Yeah, dude, that reminds me. I was at a Bree Bagwell concert, and they started playing Stevie Wonder "Superstitious," and they did like a jam to it, and they were getting after it. But behind the stage were 2 screens, and the Astros were losing like 7-0 that night, and they went on like a 9th inning tear and ended up winning like 10-7 or something like that. So every run that was scored, the crowd was like, "Oh my gosh!" And like the band is getting into it, thinking it's for them. And so when Bree was on my music podcast I used to have, I reminded her that. She's like, "Yeah, great." Oh, yeah, my phone's already blowing up. Like, what a shot. Yeah, so you leave Hearn, and legend has it that kid is still suffering from the burn of that moment. And you went to, is that when you went down to the one near like between Houston and Louisiana? I forgot.
West Hardin,
yeah.
Yeah.
I thought so, because I remember I saw, because that was when I actually saw one of your games, and I was living in College Station still. What was it was a small town.
You went to Iola.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, Iola. Oh man, that was a night.
Yeah, that was the game that we were yelling at the other football coaches, and everybody was getting mad and all that kind of stuff. Like it was a rough game.
It was the greatest because, like, I don't think y'all pulled the win. I just remember it was a tough fought game. I do remember that, and I remember the other something happened where I think you had taken on a lot of the coaching duties, if I remember right.
I didn't really take a lot of the coaching duties. I think after the football season I did, because a lot of the coaches had been fired or
that's right.
Like so.
But you had the role
the
that
season I didn't.
You had that clipboard. I mean, you were like in coach mode. And I remember it wasn't even a scuffle really. It was like a couple of players shoved off of each other, and that was it. It was nothing. But the other team's coach was like, "Hey, coach, get your kids in line." And, well, the parents sitting around me weren't going to take that. And then, so there was kind of yelling back and forth between their coach, y'all's coaches, then the parents, and I'm sitting with your mom. And I remember it ended up becoming a moment of you telling the referee off. And that's when I was like, "Yeah, don't mess with the Juggernaut." And as soon as I dropped the phrase, I was like, I just did that at a public event. And I was like, oh crap, Brett's mom's sitting there. I turned around and your mom's just laughing. She's like, that was funny.
Well, she knew a lot of the stories anyway, so
Good.
she knew what was going on at the time.
I just remember it was cold too. It was cold.
Yeah,
that
it was
night.
cold. And but really, I looked like I was doing a lot of coaching, but really they just wanted me to shut up. So because I would say something in the headset and they're like, Myers, just shut up. You don't know what you're talking about. I'm like, all right. I just thought I would try to help you out on this play. But I was basically just there to like make sure that certain guys did certain things. So yeah.
Was that near Silsbee, Texas, by chance?
Yeah,
Okay, that's where Brittany Payne is from, and my buddy Adam Drake from College Station was from there too. It was like
we're only like 30 minutes from Beaumont.
Yeah, I just remember you texted. We were talking about sports in the group chat or whatever, and what networks we get, like DFW versus College Station area. And I remember you were like, "Dude, I get the Pelicans down here."
Yeah, I get the Pelicans. Not the good Pelicans either.
Oh,
Fat.
so you went from there to, is that there to Avery?
Yes.
Okay. And
Yeah.
Avery's where you were when y'all got married, because I remember going up there through East Texas. Man, it was a beautiful drive up there.
Yes.
And I hadn't gotten to eat at Bush's Chicken in forever, and there was one not far from there. I was like, yes. But yeah, I remember at Avery, was it Avery or Hearn or both? Where when you left, the kids' test scores were like really high, and so they were like, "Oh, just kidding. You want to?" Was it there? Am I thinking of the right place? There was something like your test scores were really good, and they were like,
I
"Would you
know
just
at
want to?"
Hearn, me and the other history teacher for like the U.S. history, we made like 100%, like for the first time ever, like at Hearn for U.S. history. But
Right.
I know at Avery they wanted me to still stay there and teach because our
Yeah.
scores had been so good. So, but I didn't want to do that. So,
No.
that's where I'm at now, Saltillo. But yeah, Avery's a good place. I still live in Avery. Don't have any regrets being there. Got a lot of good people there. Uh, it just didn't work out. And there were some rough seasons in Avery. I was
Yeah.
West Hardin. I was my first year to be the head baseball coach, and then went to Avery. When I first got there, we were pretty good. We had a couple guys that could play, and then I lost those guys. And me being the young dumb coach that I was, I didn't develop anybody behind them, and those next 2 years were pretty rough.
Well, you also had a wonderful group of parents trying to tell you how to do your job.
Yeah, I did have some parents trying to tell me to do my job, but the kids weren't terrible. They tried hard. We just were out of our league, and our goal was not get beat by 30 runs.
Yeah.
That still happened a couple of times. I got into it with a coach over there one time because he kept scoring runs, and it was senior night, and so I was trying to defend my boys, and I even had the superintendent had to come over there and tell me to shut up because I wouldn't stop talking.
Can't imagine.
Yeah. Well, first, I told the principal, I said, I'm going to keep saying something until he quits scoring runs. He's like, okay. But then, and then later the superintendent said, okay, you need to shut up now. You're talking too much. I'm like, all right, I'll just sit over here on my bucket so we don't get in trouble.
And y'all are doing pretty well. Like I remember, I think it was basketball I was looking at. Like Saltillo, y'all were wrecking shop out there this year. I mean, I haven't checked the scores since like 3 or 4 weeks ago when I was texting you, but it looked like things were going pretty well. How's it looking right now?
Well, we got beat on Tuesday, but we played on last week. We played the number like 5 ranked team in the state, and we weren't ranked, and nobody expected us to win. And we came in there and we played great out of our minds, and we did something that nobody expected us to do and beat them. And that was like the second round.
Oh wow.
And then we were in the regional quarterfinals on Tuesday, and we were playing a school that was pretty good. They were ranked top 5 in the state, and they shot like lights out. Like I don't know if y'all know basketball shooting percentages, but when the one team shoots 75% in the first quarter and your team scores 4% in the first quarter, things don't go very well. So
Nope.
we got beat by 20 by them, but it was a good season. Well, I mean, we were a really good team, and we were all. And it's funny that since I've been there, and the basketball coach, who by the way is from Hardin Simmons, we don't talk about that.
Oof.
And actually, he remembers us. By the way, because do you remember there was a player on there while we were there that was like super baby face, like he looked like he was 16 years old.
Yeah,
and
totally.
we made like a poster of him, right?
Yeah.
It's him.
Oh, that's awesome.
And he remembered that, and I was like, yeah, I went to UMHB. And I said, I remember you playing. He goes, y'all had a poster of my face. And I'm like, yeah, yeah, we did.
I'm going to chalk that up as an Archibald moment, probably, because I had no room to call anyone baby faced.
It might have been the Arch's his senior year, my junior year.
Okay.
College Station.
Yeah, I was just telling my dad the other day, I actually kind of feel bad about the Rogaine banner we put up for Concordia. I'm like, that was kind of wrong.
But he loved that. His name's Casey Riddle. He loved it. He's one of those guys that loved the negativity and everybody getting on him. So we probably shouldn't have been nice. Probably should have been nice to him. He would have played bad. But
that's a consistent theme, though. I've heard talking to other athletes from other schools. They loved the atmosphere at UMHB at that time. It feel like a real big time college game for them, and they thought it was hilarious. One of my best friends played basketball at Howard Payne, and he talked about the same stuff.
Swordfish.
Yeah.
Dude, you said that, the moment you said that, Dawson's tweet popped up, and he says, at Cliff Carroll, I wish you had the supportive fan bases of the past. You're doing a great thing with those young men and deserve a rowdy, wild, electrifying crowd presence. Even without that existing, you're doing great work. Keep it up.
Well, preach, Dawson. That gets a retweet.
Yep.
Which I do. That brings me up to another game I just remembered off the top of my head, and it has to do with Hardin Simmons, the infamous double bird game with the kicker, or he's a wide receiver / kicker, and we've been sending him Facebook messages all week and talking crap to him, and
that was
but he went down he didn't flip us off and then pray. He prayed and then flipped us off. And we're like, dude, you did it backwards.
We're gonna get to heaven someday, and the Lord's gonna say, I told him to do that. Y'all were out of line.
He didn't do it once. He did it twice because he did it at halftime too.
Yeah, the first one was like a quick flip, like the Johnny Manziel Redskins thing, and then the halftime was both. I'm like, wow, Andy, you're going to hell. So one thing I love about your coaching career, at least the way I'm perceiving it now, it's even when we were in college, you wanted to go back to a small town, like East Texas was home. The way I see it, it's like you've got a family, you've settled down, you're winning, you're happy, you're in East Texas. Like that is the coolest thing, because from the start of your career, that's what I've been rooting for you. I mean, I've rooted for you to win anywhere, but I mean, I was like, it'd be cool if he could really settle there, and that's just cool to me. Some completely unrelated sports note. Last year, you texted all of us, and you went to the Red River Shootout for the first time.
Yes.
Well, this year would have been the one to go to for you, but what was that experience like? Because I mean, I don't, people know I don't really care for either team, but I've always thought it'd be fun to stand on the aisle between the two.
Man, the atmosphere was insane, and we've been to A&M games, and A&M. I'm not a huge fan of A&M, but I love the atmosphere. It's entertaining. You're going to enjoy yourself. Texas always has that reputation of not being a great fan base, but for that game, they are an amazing fan base. And that was the game that Texas got to a really big lead, right? And so the party was going on the orange side, this huge party, everybody's celebrating, and here comes OU. And you could just see our side was getting quieter and quieter and quieter, and their side's getting louder. And so it was a great game, great atmosphere. The only thing that sucked is the Cotton Bowl. If you've ever been in it, it's not very big. So when we were trying to leave, you're talking about 5 people across trying to exit out of this stadium. And so it took us 30 minutes just to get out of the stadium.
Which is weird. It's 90,000 seats, but they didn't expand the gates.
Correct. Yeah. The walkways are still the walkways from the 1930s, not what they need now, but the game itself was amazing, and I wouldn't have traded, even if Texas lost, I wouldn't have traded it. It was one of the
That's how
funnest
you
games I've
know.
been a
That's how
part
you know it
of.
was a good time.
Yeah.
And that's what blows my mind about Texas and their fan base is like most of the time they feel more like the pro team of Austin rather than a college. But that is the 1 week every year where they act like a college, and it's kind of like cool to watch. That's how Texas Tech has been. Like they keep adding to their stadium, but they don't expand the corridors. And it was a tight squeeze because the one Nathan and I we went to Texas at Tech this past year, and it was a sellout. And I've never been in that stadium when it's fully sold out before. It was so uncomfortable. Like the body humidity in the small concession stand corridor at halftime was so bad. And it was the same kind of thing. Texas basically threw a celebration in the foyer, and we're all sitting there having to like endure it because no one thought Tech was going to win it. They were getting their butts kicked. Like I did tell Nathan, though, I said, no matter who these two teams are, how funny would it be if Tech won after the celebration? Sure enough, it goes into overtime, and all the Texas fans in our section leave, and the Tech fans at the front are, yeah, y'all get back in your seat. Y'all gotta watch how this plays out. But so unbeknownst to you, after I texted a few weeks ago about y'all's baseball and basketball schedule, there was a separate chat going on. I was talking to like Kane, Andy, Tyler, Nathan. I was like, it didn't work, but we were plotting to like come to one of your games unannounced and just like heckle the other team. Just because I was like, I don't know if this will throw off his coaching or not, but it would be kind of funny have unknown dudes in a small town heckling high school kids. Like, where did these guys
please
come
to a baseball game and do it so I can deny anybody knowing who they are. I'm like, I don't know who those guys are.
Yeah, I imagine
no idea.
You would never even like you wouldn't even say, "Hey, thanks." You would just like walk out, keep your head down.
The funnier thing I think would be if we pretend
Yeah,
we're for
probably.
the other side, like pretend we're angry. You know, like those parents that criticize their own kid too much and it gets in their head. We go act like we're rooting for the other team and just like memorize the other team's players' names. Like Bobby, this is why you never bat higher than this average. Like, watch the ball.
Actually, I would prefer if y'all just heckled me the whole time because then I can just have fun and people would be like, man, them fans are really getting into it.
Be hilarious. Be like when Andy Pipes called me up to get a Tech foul on purpose at an intramural game.
Yeah.
Well, we got like 2 minutes left. So I'm trying to think if there's anything we left out during all that. I don't know that there was. Tyler may think of one. I'm not.
No, man. That was
how many games are left that you were watching during this?
one.
I know you one. Okay, you're down to one.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's awesome. Got super serious about this one.
I love that we get that UMHB reaction live on the podcast.
You couldn't have timed that better.
No, that was magic.
Bret, I'm super glad we got to do this because I've been looking forward to this episode, and like I don't know when the next bro reunion will be, but it can't not happen. So I'm looking forward to that.
Oh yeah.
When Emily was on this podcast, she was like, when is the whole group going to get together? And I think I about had an aneurysm just hearing the logistics. I'm still recovering from 2019.
If I had to set an over-under on how many times we're all together again for the rest of our lives, that number might be like 2, maybe 1.
I don't even know if we're going to get everybody on this podcast.
Yeah, it was great time. Hopefully I wasn't too boring.
No, not for a second. No, well, as you can tell your coaching friend up there, it's 9:21 and HSU
and ETBU
still sucks.